Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm super excited to be showing you how to make dark techno like Ben Klock. So as usual, you get the project file and samples and MIDI and all that kind of stuff from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it'll be available there shortly. And yeah, let's get started. So this loop you heard in the intro, we're at 128 BPM, and the first sound I have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So what this is a pretty standard sort of like rumble kick. And the difference here between like this kick and a lot of other kind of techno kicks that I've shown on this channel is this isn't the most like warehousey dark kick. You know, like in tracks by artists like Joy Hauser or like Spectre or maybe say, you know, like those kinds of artists like Umek, like people who make those like really big warehousey kind of kicks. This isn't quite that. It's still very hard hitting. And it definitely still has the warehousey rumble to it. But you can hear if I turn off the rumble, the kick sample we have here is a lot softer. So again, it's not like one of those super huge kind of warehousey kicks. It's more of like a softer drum machine style kick. So yeah, and then I have that going into the rumble. Here's what that sounds like. And yeah, so what we have here is an audio effect track. What I've got is I've got two chains. I have a dry chain, and then I have a wet chain. And so the dry chain, and then the wet chain is what's doing the rumble. So the first effect we have on there is a simple delay. So here's what it sounds like with just that. So you can hear the simple delay is just creating some like extra sort of repeats there. Like you could also do this with a reverb. People do that quite a bit for these kinds of kicks. I like using a delay because it's kind of more like, you know, it's more rhythmic like that, which is good for, I found like sounding pretty good in this track. But yeah, so I just have that doing 16th notes, and that is a delay. After that, we have the amp, which sounds like this. So you can hear that's taking it and distorting it, and it's making it a bit crunchy. But most importantly, you can hear it's really helping to add some like kind of low-end rumble to the repeats and give them some more texture. After that, we have this auto filter, which sounds like this. You can hear this is dialing back the sound. Basically, again, we have this kind of like crunchy sound where it has like a lot of high end, but also a lot of really nice rumbling low end. And this is a rumble kick, so we want to focus on just the rumble. So that's where this filter comes in. You can hear I'm cutting off all that high end and just keeping the rumbly part. And then the last thing we have on here is just a compressor side chaining it to the dry kicks so we can get the rumble kind of, you know, bouncing off of that kick instead of just having it just kind of competing for space with it. After that, we have a bit of drum bus on the whole kick. So here's without that. And then with that, you can hear it makes it a lot fatter. And then the last thing that we have on here is this EQ8. And with this, I'm just boosting the low end a little bit and then cutting a little bit of like 198 hertz. So almost 200 hertz. Just sort of a little bit of muddy stuff. And that is it for the kick. And the next thing that we have here is this main sort of lead synth, which sounds like this. So I'll show you the notes for this one first. Basically what's happening here is it's playing this pattern. It's just a simple kind of pluck thing. And then what I've done is I've taken all those notes that you just heard and then added in the fifths of them. So like we have like all of these up here. And that's how you get the sound. So yeah, it's not that complicated. It's a really simple little riff, but then adding that fifth on top of it kind of adds a little bit more to it. So yeah, and then after that, we just have the sound, which is made in analog. What I've got going on here, as you can see, we just have one saw wave going into a low-pass filter. The filter, as you can hear, is pretty important for the sound. I've just got this sort of like plucky envelope on it. And yeah, after that, we have a bit of echo. You can see I've just got this doing .8 notes. Just kind of giving it some space. You can hear that in there. And then we have a little bit of reverb, giving it even more space. The reverb is kind of subtle, I feel like, but it's definitely adding a lot. And yeah, after that, we have a bit of drum bus just to fatten it up. Here's without that. And then with it, so you can hear this is really helping to sort of beef the sound up. After that, we have a bit of compression, just side chaining it to the kick. And then I have the EQ8. As you can hear when I turn that on and off, it's just kind of cleaning up the low end a bit, you know, cutting out some of those muddy things around like 200 hertz, as well as just cutting out like the whole low end and making room for the kick. And yeah, that is it for the lead. Next sound we have here is this little vocal stab, which sounds like this. So what this is like I said, it's just a little vocal stab. I'll show you the original sample. Yeah, it's just that I just have it in here kind of playing on that one upbeat. It adds something kind of nice because it's constantly repeating, and it's like it's kind of adding something melodic over top of the lead, you know, like we have this lead. But then when you add this in there, it adds something that isn't just constantly going and going and going. It kind of like just hits on that one note there. And yeah, so like I said, that's just a little stab that I have in a simpler here. I've got a few effects on it. The first thing we have is a bit of reverb, so here's without it. And then with it, obviously, reverb's pretty important because you can hear this sound has so much space to ring out in the track. That like you can really get away with quite a bit of reverb on this sound. After that, I have a saturator. Here's without it. And then with it. So this is actually doing quite a bit. It's really like crunching the sound up. I wanted this to have a more kind of rough, distorted texture. And that's what this is doing, because you can hear it goes from that to that. Like you really hear it crunching like that. And the key here is this bass frequency. If I turn that off, you can hear it's just kind of like a little bit fatter when we turn it on. That's what's really giving it the crunch. After that, we just have a compressor side chaining into the kick, and that is it for the vocal stab. So the next thing that we have here is this little drum rack with some hi-hats, which sounds like this. Basically, I have two hi-hats here doing this pretty simple sort of like more old school, kind of like Detroit techno style pattern, you know. And a lot of the more like warehousey tracks like I was talking about before, they kind of have more of like a futuristic element to it, where I feel like it's not so into like referencing like the more old school styles of techno. But with this style, there's a little bit more room to do that. So that's kind of what this is doing. Like you can hear this is just a very like old school Detroit sounding hi-hat pattern. And so yeah, we just have two kind of like drum machine style hi-hats in there sort of playing off of each other. And yeah, and then I have a few effects on there. So the first thing we have is a saturator. Here's without it. And with it, so you can hear this just beefs the hi-hats up a little bit more. And then we just have an EQ8 cutting out the lawn. And that is it for the hi-hats. The next thing we have here is the shaker, which sounds like this. And this is pretty simple. It's just sort of like a pretty powerful, strong shaker. You can hear we have these kind of like these hi-hats kind of underneath it, and then the shaker is really like on top there. Just playing on the upbeats. And yeah, and then the next thing that we have here is this little clap, which sounds like this. So this is meant to be kind of like the percussion version of like what this vocal stab is doing. Like I said with the vocal stab, you know, it's just kind of one thing that hits every now and then. And just kind of comes in and then rings out for a while. And that's what this is, but it's more like a percussive sound. So what it is this clap sample. And then I'm just kind of going through a reverb. And like I said with the vocal stab, the reverb's pretty long. Whenever you have like a sound like this that has a lot of space between the notes, you have a lot of room to do this. But yeah, and then the only other thing I have on there is just a bit of drum bass just to kind of fatten it up. Here's without it. And then with it, and that is it for the clap. So then I have all this percussion in a group, and I've got a few effects on them just to kind of like put everything closer together. You know, I talk about this in almost every video now. But it's like when you have sounds like this that are kind of a similar style, like in this case all the percussion sounds, you want to put them in a group and process them together because it's going to make your percussion and your overall mix sound a lot tighter because all the similar sounds are going to be being processed together. So what we have here is I've just got a bit of drum bus and then an EQ8 cutting out the line. Here's with nothing. And then with everything. So you can hear the drum bus really helps. I've just got this kind of fattening everything up, and it kind of helps to make everything sound closer together in volume as well. And then this EQ8 here is just cutting out the line. And making room for the rest of the elements in the mix. And that is it for the percussion. So then the last element we have here is this little vinyl noise, which sounds like this. This is really simple. As you can hear, it's just a vinyl noise sample. I actually don't have any effects on this. This one's just kind of in the background, you know, just adding some texture. With this style, this is something I've noticed a lot. Like, not just Ben Klock does this, but a lot of other techno producers in this style do this. Like, having some kind of, like, deep vinyl noise like this in the background. Where it's not just, like it's not the crispiest, most, like, crackly one. But it's a bit deeper. And it just kind of adds some nice texture to the background. You know, it's really subtle. But you do hear it in there, and it's adding a lot to the context of the track. And yeah, so that is all that I have to show you today. And I believe that's me for this one. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe and hit that little notification bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments as well. As always, you can get the project file and samples, MIDI and presets, and all that kind of stuff from this video in the description. And if you're patient on my Patreon, check there because it'll be available shortly. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow with another video.